Bob Dylan made it through the chaos of the 1960s, disappeared at the peak of his fame after a mysterious motorcycle crash, reshaped music again, and decades later, even won a Nobel Prize. Most people would slow down after a life like that. Maybe retire. Maybe look back. But Dylan didn't. Even now, in his 80s, he's still moving forward. Still creating. So how did it all begin? And why did he never stop? It starts far from the spotlight, in a cold mining town called Hibbing, Minnesota. Back then, he wasn't Bob Dylan yet. He was Robert Zimmerman, a teenager obsessed with music. Loud music. He played rock and roll covers in school bands, blasting songs so aggressively that teachers once cut the microphone mid-performance. But something changed as graduation approached. Rock was exciting, sure, but it wasn't enough. He wanted something deeper. Something older. But what exactly was he searching for? That answer started to take shape when he enrolled at the University of Minnesota in 1959. There, he found Dinkertown, a small but intense pocket of culture where folk music wasn't just played, it was lived. In tiny coffeehouses, he traded electric noise for acoustic storytelling. Old ballads. Blues standards. Songs with history. And somewhere in that shift, Robert Zimmerman quietly became Bob Dylan. But was this just a name change, or the start of something much bigger? By early 1961, at just 19, he made a bold move. He left everything behind and headed to New York City in the middle of a brutal winter. No money. No contract. Just one goal, to meet Woody Guthrie, his idol. Guthrie was sick, hospitalized, barely able to perform. But Dylan found him anyway. Played for him. Learned from him. And in those brief moments, he picked up something more than music. He picked up a purpose. But could that alone carry him into the spotlight? Back in Greenwich Village, Dylan moved fast. He played small venues like Cafe Watt, performing multiple sets a day. His voice was rough. His style unpredictable. But people noticed. Within months, he was performing alongside established names. Then came a turning point. A New York Times review called him a distinctive folk song stylist. One article. That was all it took. Suddenly, doors opened. Recording sessions followed. And just like that, he had a deal with Columbia Records. But was he ready for what came next? His first album, released in 1962, didn't exactly explode. It sold modestly. Most of the songs weren't even his. But something was changing beneath the surface. By 1963, that change was impossible to ignore. His next album introduced a completely different Dylan, one with something to say. Songs like Blowin' in the Wind spread quickly, carried by voices far beyond his own. The song asked simple questions about war and freedom, but offered no answers. And maybe that was the point. But why did it resonate so deeply with so many people? Within months, Dylan wasn't just writing about change, he was standing in the middle of it. At the March on Washington, in front of hundreds of thousands, he performed alongside major civil rights leaders. He was only 22. Yet somehow, he had become part of something much bigger than music. His songs were being sung at protests, quoted in speeches, passed around like messages. But here's the strange part. He never fully embraced that role. Why would someone step back from that kind of influence? By 1965, everything shifted again. Dylan picked up an electric guitar, and the reaction was explosive. Fans who once admired him felt betrayed. At the Newport Folk Festival, he walked on stage with a full band and played loud, electric music. Some cheered. Others booed. To many, it felt like he had abandoned the very movement that made him famous. But Dylan didn't back down. Not even a little. Why risk everything like that? Then came Like a Rolling Stone. 6 minutes long, far beyond what radio usually allowed. Columbia Records hesitated. Radio stations weren't sure. But once it started playing, nothing stopped it. The song climbed the charts and rewrote the rules of what a hit could be. Its lyrics weren't about politics anymore. They were personal, direct, almost confrontational. And suddenly, Dylan wasn't just changing folk music, he was changing music itself. But at what cost? As his public image grew louder, his private life moved in the opposite direction. In 1965, he quietly got married, started a family. And then, in 1966, came that motorcycle accident. Details were always unclear. Some even questioned how serious it really was. But one thing is certain, it changed everything. Dylan disappeared from the spotlight. No tours. Few interviews. Just silence. Why would someone walk away at the peak of their fame? For years, he lived quietly in Woodstock, focusing on family and recording music away from the public eye. Meanwhile, the world kept moving. Other artists rose. Trends changed. But Dylan stayed distant. When he returned, his music had shifted again. More personal. More reflective. Albums like Blood on the Tracks hinted at struggles in his marriage, though he never confirmed it directly. That mystery only added to his legend. But was he hiding something, or protecting something? His personal life remained tightly guarded. Even his second marriage stayed secret for years. No headlines. No announcements. Just silence. It wasn't until much later that the world learned the truth. By then, it almost felt intentional. Dylan had mastered not just music, but distance. He gave the world just enough, and nothing more. But how do you stay that private while being that famous? And here's the most surprising part. He never really stopped. Not in the 80s. Not in the 90s. Not even now. Since 1988, he's been on what fans call the never-ending tour, performing thousands of shows across the world. No big spectacle. No flashy production. Just the music. Even in his 80s, he's still releasing albums, still writing, still performing. So what keeps him going after all this time? Maybe it was never about fame. Not really. He skipped the Nobel Prize ceremony. Avoided interviews. Stayed out of the spotlight whenever he could. The attention never seemed to matter to him. Only the work did. And that's the part that never changed. After everything, every reinvention, every controversy, every disappearance, Bob Dylan is still here. Still creating. Still moving forward. And maybe that's the biggest mystery of all.